All right. So welcome along to today's webinar. Lucky enough to have Jim Parry joining us. Jim's going to talk to you and give you some, I guess, 3 simple steps to build, I guess, stronger connections with your customers. And I think in today's sort of, complex business world, we're all looking to differentiate our businesses. And I think Jim's going to talk to you about, I know Jim's going to talk to you about how to make better connections and how to use your brand as part of that sort of process. Now, Jim, I've known Jim for a number of years, very experienced brand marketer in this space with over 20 years experience working all around the world. Jim's last corporate role was with BP as a brand manager for BP before he came over to the dark side of the force and started working as a consultant, and he's now set up his own business in Melbourne called SoBrand. So we're lucky to have Jim along tonight. So I want you to get some great value out of tonight's webinar. So as I mentioned to people who are logging on beforehand, 3 gets. So make sure you get the tools. So if you haven't got a copy of the handout yet, you'll see on your control panel there's a place where you can download the handouts. But make sure you've got the handout, make sure you've got a pen, and make sure you're comfortable and you've got a drink or something to eat or whatever it is that you need to get through the next 30 minutes or so. Get rid of the distractions, so turn off your phones, turn off your email, turn off all that sort of stuff so you can concentrate, close the door, get rid of pets, noisy children, whatever you need to do. And then get ready. So open up your mind. Jim's going to expose you to a few new concepts and stuff, and I'd really like you to do that. So let's get started, get a bit of interaction here. Tell me, where are we logging in from tonight, and what's the weather like in your part of the world? Type it straight into the question box, please. Totally amazing in Perth, Bundaberg, fantastic, hot and sunny. Melbourne's warm. Thanks, Lee. Happy and hot out in Dubbo. The Council Library, nice and sunny in Brisbane. Well done, Diana. Chatswood in Sydney. Aldgate, South Australia. We've got Whangarei in the winterless north in New Zealand. Hey, Leah, welcome along. Maroochydore, Melbourne, fine and sunny. Very nice at Maroochydore too. All right, thanks, guys. Thanks for doing that. We've got from all over the place. Okay, so that's really good. So thanks for doing that. Now remember, stay till the end, and we'll let you know where you can go and get extra resources and stuff. And I guess lastly, if you just think about the style of today, Jim's going to be taking you through some different concepts, and we want this sort of webinar to be sort of reasonably fast-paced and interactive. So again, we're going to use the question box. So be prepared to type stuff into the question box and take notes as you go. We're going to do that. Jim's going to cover how to leverage your brand and engage with your customers much better. And at the end of the webinar, we're going to let you know where you can go for extra help and assistance if you'd like to do that or if you need that. So look forward to that. So with no further ado, I'm going to hand over to Jim. And if I can drive the technology here, and then we'll get things started. So, all right. So, over to you, Jim. If you want to press your presentation thing, that should all come up.
Great. So hopefully you can now see my screen, everybody. Thanks for us. Thanks for the introduction handover, and thanks everybody for tuning in. I want to just go through what I hope are 3 simple steps to cut through and win your customer's heart. It's potentially a huge area. I mean, customers pay our bills. Businesses need customers. We need to build effective and strong and lasting relationships with our customers. So, but as Russ said, particularly for small and medium-sized businesses, we don't actually have a lot of resources to hand. We don't have a lot of investment to put into building our brand through major advertising campaigns and a lot of insight resources to keep doing research around our customers. So as businesses, we're going to have to find agile ways, particularly today, agile and simple ways to operate and find ways to growth, and particularly given that customers have choices, right? So customers can choose across a myriad of services and products, often which are quite similar. So as businesses, we need to find effective ways in which to differentiate and connect with our customers on a completely different level. And if that can be done, I believe that's a very effective way to grow. So what I want to talk to you today really is around these 3 simple steps. And before I go into it, I just thought I'd share a quick sort of short story. I took a client of mine through these steps not so long ago, and she runs a fairly sort of small to medium size marketing services business. And she had a particular problem in that she found it quite hard, or was having a challenge to create a statement or articulate a statement about where she felt the crossover between her business and her customers in terms of belief was. She really found it quite hard to actually express that, and it felt to her as a barrier because she's finding it hard to actually then drive the business forward in terms of its brand positioning and its communications and offer development. And so we just really spent an afternoon. We worked through these 3 steps, and by the end of that afternoon, about 3.5 hours, 4 hours of discussing, getting into the customer's shoes, working through what we called shared value, and then understanding about how we're going to leverage that. She used the word at the end of that, therapeutic. She found it enormously therapeutic that at last she was able to express clearly about the crossover between what she really believed in, what really excited her, and what her bullseye customer really believed in. And it's a very powerful overlap. And she shared that statement with her staff, customers, and also some senior peers in her industry. And the feedback came to her that this is one of the most compelling brand positioning statements that they've seen for a business of her type. So I'm hoping that you'll enjoy the process we're going to go through. It is pretty straightforward, but like anything else, it requires some consideration and some real empathy around getting into your customer's shoes. So what I want to talk about today is really start off with a discussion around the role of emotion in brand. Now we know that through, I guess it's sort of 101 marketing school, that brands are really about a bundle of rational and emotional benefits in people's minds. But surprisingly, particularly in the area of B2B, emotion plays a big role in decision making. I just want to touch on that and give it some perspective, and then walk you through the 3 steps about how we step into the customer's shoes, how we create this notion of shared value. This is the golden nugget about how we cross over between what we believe in and value and what our customers believe in and value. And then the 3rd step about how we go forward and connect on a different level with our customers, how we broaden the playing field of our conversation, how we create a new platform to have those conversations with customers and connect. Well, what I want to do first of all is just check what cross-section of businesses we have on the line, and really to understand what cross-section we have between B2B or B2C. So I'd love to hear, and please use the question toolbox on the right-hand side. Just give me a flavor whether you're B2B or B2C. So if you're B2B, does your business concentrate mainly on business customers? Or if you're B2C, does your business concentrate on the end consumer? So if you can, just give me an idea, a flavor, whether you're B2B or B2C, so I can get a sense of who's here. So I'm seeing some B2B, fair amount of B2B coming through. Yeah, 1 or 2 B2C, but mainly sort of business to business. So, but some B2C as well. So that's kind of that's great. So I think some of the principles around this emotional connection with customer really apply both to B2B and B2C, but it helps to sort of help sort of steer the conversation a little bit. So thank you for that. Okay. Right, so what I want to do is just perhaps give you some context around an example. It's one of my favorites, and some of you have heard this before, may have heard me speak about Zappos before. And I don't know whether you're aware of Zappos, but they are a very successful American online retail business, primarily selling shoes, a whole range of products they sell, but primarily shoes. Zappos, they were bought by Amazon.com, I think in about 2007 for about $1 billion, and they had a rapid growth over years preceding that acquisition, an incredible growth rate. And one of the things that Zappos did right from the beginning, and it's important to say this because I think often when we share well-known examples, you could be forgiven for thinking, well, actually, yes, they're big, they have the resources, of course they can do these sorts of things. But as Russ used the phrase I quite like, well, it's not a domain of hope. This is actually about setting a pathway from the very beginning to help us accelerate growth. And what Zappos did is they put in place a very strong customer philosophy right at the start of their business. And they understood, and this guy, Tony Hsieh, who's the current CEO and has been with the business for quite some time, put this philosophy in right at the early days of the business. And that philosophy is really putting the customer absolutely first. And so in a sense, their shared value is really around keeping the customer or making the customer feel incredibly special, creating a wow experience and creating a very special experience for the customer. And Tony Hsieh, and I love some of his quotes that he comes out with, but one particular favorite I like about what Tony Hsieh says, that he says that Zappos is a customer service business. They just happen to sell shoes. So he puts this value set around servicing customer way on top of anything else. And to the extent it comes through in the way that Zappos does their offer development, they do their returns, free returns when you buy shoes online, they take the risk out of purchase, and they share values very strongly throughout all their communications. And so it's a good example, I think, in the sense that you can achieve accelerated growth by being very customer focused and dedicating the whole business operations and the whole business philosophy to that particular aim. So it's a good example, I think, of shared value, and in this case, creating very special customer moments or making the customer feel very special. But it's a journey, as I said. And so we have a number of tools that we can use to help us along that journey, and indeed a myriad of business tools. But the ones that I think are most relevant around this particular conversation of connecting, brand connection with customer, are your vision. So it's very important to be clear about where you want to be and completely dedicating yourself to that vision, updating it where you need to be, but articulating that vision too. Values, again, as you know, very key about expressing your belief set, how you operate and what you stand for. And sustainable competitive advantage, for those of you either involved with MindShop or work with myself or Russ using MindShop tools, will be familiar with the notion of sustainable competitive advantage, i.e. how you're going to win based on what your customers view is very important and what fits your business. But the key that I want to focus on in this discussion is really around the brand positioning, your emotional connection that you establish with both your customers and your staff. And your staff here are really important because indeed, if you have staff working for you, they're the people who are going to ultimately deliver what you need to be delivering in terms of your business growth and your connection that you wish to establish. So they have to live it too. So they're a critical part of this emotional connection. And then, of course, we have brand proposition about the value of your customers. So I want to talk about this brand positioning, this emotional connection. So to state the obvious, what is this? What is brand positioning? Well, a position a brand has, in my view, is really simply a person's gut feeling or customer's gut feeling they have about a product, company, or service. So the point here is not about what you think it is, it's about what your customer thinks it is. So you can be expressing all that you like around your desired brand positioning or your brand reputation, but at the end of the day, it's what your customer thinks through the experience they have from you or what they hear from others. So it's about building perceptions. And indeed, the art of brand positioning is quite simple. It's really about building perceptions in the minds of your customers based on the key insights you have about them, about what they need and what they want. So it's quite an involved process, but the principle is quite simple. But the point I want to make here is actually what your customer thinks, what your customer perceives, and indeed, perception is reality. So that's the art of brand positioning. It's building this perception in the mind of your customer based on what they need and want. And so I want to do a little a little sort of competition, or a little questionnaire rather than a competition. So I've got 3 brands here, pretty well known, Volvo, Walt Disney and Coca-Cola. And I'd like to hear from you. We'll go one by one, just to get your minds rolling a bit. What do you think the single word might be that represents the emotional brand positioning that Volvo has in the market? So if you can use your question box again, and just fire through to me what you think the single word that might represent Volvo in terms of its emotional positioning with its customers. What have we got coming through here? Yes, safety, elite, safety, premium, safe, secure, reliability. Yeah, great. Yeah, well done. It's safety. So Volvo kind of owns safety. They know that it's an area that absolutely resonates with customers, and as a car brand, they kind of own this area, this emotional territory of safety. Walt Disney. What do you think about Walt Disney? Fantasy, entertainment, happiness, fun magic, fun fantasy, family fun. Yeah, along the same lines, it's magic. So Walt Disney, Magic Kingdom Park, a lot of the conversation, the narrative, the communications, the way they ask employees to step into role around magic characters, very compelling. And the last one, Coca-Cola. What do you think Coca-Cola's single word is? Bad sugar. Life, cool. Youth, fun, relaxing, cool. Social, yeah. Taste, sugar, taste, fresh. It's happiness. And indeed, Coca-Cola right now, if you Google Coca-Cola happiness, you'll see all sorts of examples of the way Coke do this. And one example is they created a telephone kiosk in the United Arab Emirates to help migrant workers to make free phone calls back to their families in the country they came from. Because one of the issues of migrant workers, or many of them, is they can't afford to make regular phone calls. And so Coke created this branded telephone kiosk where all the migrant workers had to use the bottle top of a Coke bottle instead of a coin. And so they brought people together, created a video, and that video then goes viral. And it starts to build this conversation around happiness, not about the fizzy drink or sugar, it's about happiness. And so the thing that we notice about all of these individual words is that in themselves they've got nothing to do with the product or service that they're offering. But what they are, in fact, is a very powerful emotional platform that gives the organization permission to expand upon in terms of offer development and communications and marketing. So it's a very powerful way to broaden your conversation way beyond your individual product. And so if you can own that platform or start to express that platform, it's quite powerful. So emotions, those are consumer examples, but what about B2B? And so there's a lovely analogy I wanted to share with you that starts to talk about the role emotion plays in B2B purchasing and buying. Now, this elephant and rider analogy comes from a guy called Jonathan Haidt. He wrote a book called The Righteous Mind, Why Good People Are Divided by Politics and Religion. And I think at the end we're going to give you a link to access this book if you wish. But I've taken a grab from the book, and also I've got a couple of grabs from an excellent paper written by Google and Corporate Executive Board talking about the role of emotion in B2B purchasing. And again, I'll make that paper available to you, but it's really, really good reading. But I love this analogy of the elephant and the rider because I think it's so true, and it also is so relevant in B2B. So the rider is our conscious, rational brain that tries to rein in this big, strong elephant that represents the emotions. And indeed, often the rider finds himself, or the rational mind finds itself post-rationaling what we decide to do on emotional impulse. And of course, the elephant represents the intuitive emotional minds that can often drive decision making, a very powerful force. And the reason it exists in B2B B2B, quite simply, is because B2B buyers are human beings, and human beings are all about emotion. And so in a B2B context, it's really important to understand where emotion plays a role. And in B2B, it particularly comes down to where there is personal value, rather than just business value, where personal value occurs. Now, another grab I have from the Google paper is a chart that actually surprised me when I first saw it. And it shows the percentage of customers across the survey that they conducted who feel emotionally connected to a brand, whether it be a B2B brand for B2B customers or a B2C brand for consumers. And surprisingly, a lot of B2B brands actually have a higher place in emotional connections in a buyer's mind than a consumer's relationship with a B2C brand. Now, I guess this is because often the stakes are higher in a commercial or business context. And so your particular reputation or your business or your social standing or your career could well be on the line. And so therefore, an organization that connects and gets this right and services you right and gets your problems and solves your problems right is probably going to achieve a higher degree of connection with you, particularly when those brands understand the personal value that a buyer gets out of that relationship with the brand. So quite surprising and quite interesting. The last grab I'm going to give you from this report, and you can certainly read it yourselves, but is where personal value beats business value. And so the impact of perceived brand benefits on a potential commercial outcome or decision about whether to buy a particular service or product within the B2B context, business value is seen really as clearly critical, but a ticket for entry. Many businesses and organizations will provide some form of business value, and that will vary. But where a B2B brand or a business can tap into the personal value of the buyer, of the decision maker, or the stakeholders, and there's some examples there what that might look like, the impact is twofold beyond business value. So it's enormously powerful to recognize how individuals operate and what they look for emotionally for themselves, as well as trying to do the right thing for the business they either own or operate. So it's a very important component. So into the steps. So what do we do? How do we start? And I want to keep this as simple as I possibly can, because I think around brand positioning and brand marketing, there's a lot of complexity talked about. So I think it's really important, like we said at the beginning, being relatively small businesses and not necessarily having the resources around us to keep these things simple and focused. So step one, quite frankly, is to start with your customer and their emotions. And this is about building a pen portrait. It's naming your bullseye customer. Or those of you who have heard Mindshop people speak about customer, we often talk about zebras, the perfect customer that you want to go for in terms of accessibility and what they spend and attitude. So it's good to start with your perfect customer. We all have them. We all can identify a customer who we really value and would like all our customers to be like this. So start with your perfect customer, your zebra. Give them a name and start to mind map the world of that particular customer. Where do they work? What do they do? What do they love doing? What makes them happy, sad? What problems do they have? What's a good, bad day? And start to build a map and a pen portrait of who your customer is. And again, it sounds pretty obvious, and this is my experience also, that whilst we all as business people get the importance of customer, we can find that through our day-to-day operations and distractions and what we have to do, that we can actually migrate or drift away from this critical component of really understanding and being in our customer's shoes. So periodically stepping back and really seeing things from your customer's perspective is a very healthy and very important thing to do. So I've done an example here, and I've used a fictitious customer called Brian. And I'm using Brian as a fictitious customer of toll delivery services. Now, I wrote a paper a short while ago where I used UPS as an example, but the principles are still the same. So if we think about the mind map, what it might look like for Brian. So Brian, who is he? He's the busy business delivery manager. And so we start to mind map about what Brian's world is like. So what's a great day look like for Brian? What does Brian care about? Where does Brian work? What problems does he have? Who are his stakeholders? Who does he need to serve? And why does he buy these sorts of services? What's he looking for? And so by doing this, we can start to take a very human, individual human approach to Brian and start to empathize with his world and have a discussion around some of the things that Brian looks for. So Brian's looking for efficiency. He doesn't want the stress of having to worry about these things being delivered. He needs to be in some cases, Brian will need to be reassuring stakeholders and customers that deliveries are occurring and that things are happening, that he's in control. That's what Brian's kind of looking for. So it's quite a simple mind map, and one that I'm sure that you can expand. And again, it doesn't take very long. Sit down with colleagues, people that you know or know your business, and just use the mind mapping tool to brainstorm and map out your customer's world. So once you've done that, and this is where you can relate to your, if you've managed to download the shared value tool that Russell spoke about at the beginning, and I'd encourage you as we go through this, start to jot down for yourselves the components of the shared value tool based on what I'm saying and what's occurring to your mind around what could be your brand or service expressed in this way. And often your first thoughts are going to be the most potent ones, so it's well worth just having a quick go as you go through. But let me just talk you through the tool. So we start with your target customer, your zebra. So we think about Brian, right? So Brian, the busy delivery manager, he's the target audience, or an example of target audience. Then we have to express what job or desired outcome are they looking for? What do they want to achieve by buying your particular product or service? And where we say it provides is what's the functional benefit of your particular product or service? What does it do and allow them to do functionally? And your product or service will offer, hopefully or generally, some sort of point of differentiation. But the key here, the real magic, is what does this allow your customer to do? So you're thinking about what you believe in as a business and what you care about and what gets you excited. Where does that start to cross over with what your customer cares about or gets excited? So we think back to the Volvo or the Coke examples. So these words, these emotional territories start to move into this higher order emotion, this emotional outcome that customers are looking for that is much, much bigger than the product or service you're delivering. And this is the magic. This is the real territory we want to get into. And then the final piece of the model helps to articulate why they should believe you. So what's the proof point or the belief that we need to provide them to make sure they understand and believe what we're saying? So keep thinking about your model and jot down your own thoughts as we go. But what would it look like for Brian and Toll Courier Services? And so this is an illustration, so I hope it illustrates the point. But so it might be for Brian. So Brian is the busy business delivery manager, and he wants to deliver products on demand. He has to deliver those products when they're demanded by customers. So what's the functional benefit of Toll Courier Services? Well, it's about delivering parcels on time. And the point of difference that Toll Courier Services might offer was an assurance of always being on time delivery, and so there's less inventory for business. He doesn't have to stack it up. It's just in time delivery. But the higher order emotion, or this connection that Toll might have with Brian, would be around certainty, enjoying certainty. So going back to the mind map of Brian, he was thinking about stress, being in control, knowing what was happening. So Brian wants to enjoy this area of certainty. Now, certainty is a key business asset, right? We all need to know and be sure about what's happening in business, if only we could be sure. And so Toll Courier Services could in fact take this area of enjoying certainty and expand that out into much broader conversations with customers and how that develops their product innovation, how that develops the way they communicate. And certainty potentially is an emotional territory they can really work for that goes beyond the area of courier deliveries on time. And then there's a reason to believe it could be supported with that. So start to work through your own your own sheets as I go. A B2C example is Nature Valley. Now, Nature Valley are a General Mills business, and they make health food snack bars. And what Nature Valley, again, is an illustrative example here, but what Nature Valley have identified as a target audience for them is the aspirational outdoor person. And this person wants to be outside enjoying nature and obviously satisfying their hunger, but being outside. They love being outside. So the functional benefit that Nature Valley provide through the snack bar range is providing healthy snacks. And they offer a point of difference through the ingredients they use and the makeup of the products, that it's natural nutrition without any preservatives. And so the killer piece here is that this allows the customer to connect with nature. And this is the higher order emotional territory that Nature Valley now uses their positioning. And I'll show you a graph from the website in a second. You'll see how that comes to life. But again, it's a good example of how it goes way, way beyond the role of snack bars and indeed satisfying hunger to this whole positioning, the relationship that Nature Valley achieve with their customer around they want to connect with nature, they love nature, and they believe in it, and so do their customers. So very powerful juxtaposition between the customer and Nature Valley. And they believe it because Nature Valley has a long history of this, and they embrace the outdoors and sponsor all sorts of outdoor sporting events. So the step 3 then, how do we start to move this forward? How do we kind of do something with this? Like a lot of these things, it's about implementation. Well, again, it needs to be done quite simply. And I've taken a grab from Salesforce.com, and I really like these questions that Salesforce.com ask. We need to ask ourselves to be able to become a truly customer-centric organization. And so what I urge you to do is think about, once you've established your territory, your shared value that you have with your customer, as how you might filter some of these questions through that shared value. So how do you indeed listen to every customer? So if we're about Brian, and Brian enjoying certainty, how do we listen to Brian in the way that he expresses that? And how do we talk to Brian? And how do we engage with him through all of our channels of communication around this territory of certainty? And particularly important, number 3 in a B2B scenario, is actually that structure, that model provides a structured narrative for sales conversations. And it fits in with, you'll be familiar, some of you, with the sales process around that Mindshop, we in Mindshop use around connecting and identifying your core target, identifying your rational and emotional benefits. But how do we sell as a team? How do we use the structure to create a narrative with our potential customers about who we're talking to, what they're looking for, the outcomes, and indeed what then that allows them to do in terms of emotional outcome? Again, it's about emotion. And so how do we service customers? But also number 5, about creating connected partners. How do we create communities? So again, think about the potential that Nature Valley has, for example, around connecting with nature, how that allows a broader conversation to bring others in to talk about things that people are interested in talking about rather than just the product. Nature Valley also bring partners into this, so number 6. And I'll show you in a second the partners they used to create marketing relationships and product relationships with, again, to broaden their platform and broaden their field of who they're talking to. And also number 7 and 8 is about how we connect our products, how we develop our innovation through this filter of the shared value. So how do Nature Valley use connecting with nature as a filter to develop their product innovation, and always staying on track with this identified shared value that they have with their customer? And so here's the screen grab from Nature Valley. You can see that the whole positioning they take is really around connecting with nature. The whole background, the whole positioning, the communications platform is really around nature. And the partners that they associate with, this is one grab from the website, National Parks Conservation Association, and they also sponsor golfing tournaments so that They understand that people like to be outside, close to nature. So it's relative to the way that they do their activity. And they also create connected conversations. You'll see in the small print just above where National Parks Conservation is, around partnering with organizations that share their mission of encouraging people to hashtag get out there. So they're really championing this cause of connecting with nature, being outside, and being natural and living healthy. So it's an extraordinarily broader platform, like I said, than simply health food snack bars. And so I think as businesses, if we can get to this territory, it's enormously powerful. And finally, I mentioned Zappos at the beginning. The principle's the same. Zappos, one example is if shared value potentially is around creating that special feeling for customers feeling really special, well, they deliver that in spades. And one thing they do is fast, free shipping and return, so they take the stress or risk out of online shopping by allowing you to buy product, keeping the one that you want and sending back free of charge the ones that you don't like. VIPs can log in for special benefits and extra attention, and that philosophy flows through the whole way that the customer service team operates and indeed how they recruit. I could speak for hours on Zappos, but I think that's the point that I'm getting across. So I hope you've been working through your own model and you come up with some interesting thoughts and ideas. If you've got any, I'd love to hear them, but given that we promised it was half an hour, I'm probably shortly in danger of overriding that. But so really, to summarize, emotional connection, I believe, through shared value is a hugely effective and very important tool for growth. And I think this is the case for whether you're a very small one-man business or whether you're a major corporation. The principle's still the same. If you're going to differentiate and achieve connection with customer, you have to tap into emotions, both in B2C and B2B. And those businesses that do that well, consistently, and flow it through their sustainable competitive advantage will win. And so the process is step into your customer's shoes, create a pen portrait, name them, and understand their world, and do it regularly. Then use the model to create shared value. Work through that model, and it can be for an individual product or it can be for your business in totality. But it helps you build a narrative for how you drive your business sales conversations, your marketing, and indeed why you operate as a business. And make sure you're clear about what you believe in and where that crosses over with your customer. Get that right, it's enormously powerful. And that then allows you to connect on a different level. You don't have to spend a lot of money developing this position. It can happen over time as long as your language and your external face represents the shared value that you've identified. And I think it'll be extraordinarily powerful. So I hope that was useful. I'd love to hear over time, maybe at the end, I'll hand back to Russ around any questions you may have and indeed any insights you may have using your model. Thank you. I'll hand back to you, Russ.
All right, thanks, Jim. Okay, so great presentation. I think there's a lot of really powerful messages coming out of that. Certainly, I see organisations that really have targeted their avatar or their target market well. Certainly do a way better job of attracting them and hanging on to them and retaining those customers. So thanks for that, Jim. I've got a question for you all. I might get you to put it into the question area for me. What's your takeaway? So Jim covered a lot of territory there, but what's the one big takeaway for you? What's the take-home message for you? So what did you take out of that you're going to apply in your business? So just quickly punch that into the question area for us. Yep, so we got here. Build the narrative, shared values. Yeah, think beyond just talking about your product. Really good stuff here. Connecting emotional wants to outcomes. Yeah, that's critical. Allowing them to tap into customer emotions. Yeah, so tap into customer emotions. Yeah, identify with the core customer and find some shared value. That's excellent. Tap into people's emotions. Using structure, personal value does count, not just not just the business value. Yeah. Get high emotional connections. View your business from the customer's interaction standpoint. That's really important. Yeah, got some stuff here. Yeah, it's good stuff. Well, I did ask you to type some stuff and you've all gone crazy, so that's fantastic. That's another one here. A simple concept, probably harder to implement than to do. Yeah, I think that's true. The challenge with implementation is you can either do it yourself, the trial and error method, or you can speak to somebody like Jim or myself to help you along the way. So, so some of this stuff is Jim. The concepts are quite simple, but it can be difficult to do. All right, that's great. And then I guess another question for you is, how important is it that you start working on this now from your business perspective? So if you think about your business and where you need to go and what you need to do, how important is it that you start this sort of brand building and this connection with customers now? Just give me a number. So 1 is not very important and 10 is yesterday would be really good, thanks. So just punch a number straight into the system. We go. What we got here, Jim? We've got 8s and 10s and 9s, 8s, 9s, 8s, 10s, 5, 8, 9, 8, 7s. Wow. So reasonably important, I would be suggesting for most people to think about. Okay, that's good. I thought there'd be some people saying, no, it's not that important, but obviously you see this stuff as really important in your business. Okay, that's excellent. All right, so we, I guess we'll come back and we'll open up for some questions for Jim in just a second. I guess just wanted to touch on the next steps and where we go. So the first place is back to Jim's website. So go to Jim's website and he'll help you out. His phone number's there as well, so you can track him down and have a chat with him. So more information, contact Jim. Also, well, all over the place here. Happy for you to go to our website as well, and Jim's website has free diagnostics on it as well, so you can go to the So Brand website or go to sbdbusiness.com.au, horticulture-nextgeneration.com.au if you're a horticultural business. Heaps of we've got free diagnostics there. We've got videos, lots of videos around marketing and brand building, some blog articles, and some great resources for you there. So that's all really, really powerful. If you'd like to get in touch with Jim and I, my suggestion is that you take the time, book yourself a 10-minute call with us or have a chat with us. And the reason why we're suggesting a quick chat is it's because we're not necessarily the right fit for everyone. So not everybody is a good fit, because there needs to be a bit of a meeting of the minds and it needs to be the right timing for you. So what we'll do is both Jim and I are happy to have a quick conversation with you, a 10-minute chat with you, just to work out where you're going and where you'd like to be. And then if it works for you, then we're really happy to then book another time with you where we can talk about how that might happen. So if you'd like to book that 10-minute call, that's fine. Best way to do that, you can actually the easiest way is actually just to type yes Jim or yes Russell into the question box, and we'll track you down and book a time with you from there. Alternatively, you can go to either our websites and contact us there. If you go to my website, you'll see "Do you want to grow your business?" and just click on that, and I'll take you through to somewhere you can book a 10-minute call with us. So that's where you can go to get more resources, where you can get some more help straight away. What have I done there? I've gone crazy. Here's Mr. Parry. What's going on here? There we go. Sorry, Jim. Lost the technology. All right. So any questions for Jim? Just type them into that question box. Righto. So George is already booked in there, Jim, so that's great. Excellent. Any other questions? Just keep typing them in, and I'll just roll through. Said we'd let you know where you can get some resources. So if you just go to my website at the moment here, sbdbusiness.com.au/3-simple/steps or -steps, you'll go and see some resources there. And and we'll be putting a recording of this webinar up in a couple of days' time. But if you're busting and want to get a copy of Jim's slides and any of the resources, just go there straight away. It's already up and available for you. So we've got a question here, Jim. How different is it when selling professional services, mostly B2C?
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Paul. Yeah, good question. I think the principles are very much the same. The techniques you might use and the media you might use or the channels you might use may be different. But selling direct to consumer, you still have to tap into their emotional requirements. What is it they're looking for as a result of this particular transaction in professional services? So, I mean, your business I know is around conveyancing, so I'm not going to attempt to create a shared value for you right now, but understanding what the wider background emotional intent is and what they go through in their world, I think is extremely important. So the principles, I think, are the same, but how you go about it and through the channels may be slightly different.
Okay, thanks, Jim. Another question here from Veronica. How are you, Veronica? Good to see you again. Do you think that a customer from a different culture could be more difficult to connect with?
Well, it varies. I mean, I've had experience of, in my BP days that Russ referred to, dealing with customer groups and business groups from many different cultures. Again, I think the way you approach it and the language you use to approach, and I don't mean the language you speak, I mean how you actually adopt an approach, will be different. But actually, again, because we're human beings, our emotional set, I think, is pretty similar. So again, it comes back to the underlying higher order emotion that a customer or consumer may be going through. I think are going to be pretty similar, but again, cultural nuances may have to change the way you approach certain things. So I could probably go into lots of different examples, but I think it's really being sensitive, which is why doing the pen portrait of your customer, and again, if there is a cultural component, a cultural overlay, add that into your mind mapping of your pen portrait customer. But it's a good question. I think it's very important.
Jim, would it be important to I guess, road test that with some people from that culture, just to make sure that you do have that understanding? So, if you look
absolutely
at Asia, track down some people from the part of Asia that you're heading to, and go and talk to them about whether that makes sense.
That's absolutely right, Russ. Well, one thing I was going to say at the beginning, where we do the mind mapping around customer, I mean, my assumption is that a lot of business people do have a pretty good handle on who their customer is, but there may be occasions where you're launching a new product into a new segment and you don't, and you may need to bring in or think about some sort of formal insight program to do that. But a good shortcut way of doing it is to bring representative customers into the room as well, and I've done that with customers, and that's fantastic because you're actually doing it with the customer. So road testing with certain customer groups, whether it's a cultural overlay or it's a new product overlay or any other reason to segment customer, if you can do it with customer, that's brilliant.
Okay, good stuff. And then just one last question here. We've got, I have to read it out, it's a long one. Our business is more B2C. Does this mean our deeper connection point will be more emotion-based and practical-based than B2B? Our friend of the farm service offers door-to-door delivery with unique products. Is convenience or Australian farm/city country connection more important in your opinion in this case?
Can you just repeat, Russ, sorry, the business itself? I can't actually see the question, sorry.
Sorry. It says, our business is more B2C, yeah? And I think it's a farm-based business. Rowan, give us a little bit of background. I assume you're a farm-based business and you're actually delivering product door-to-door, so unique products. So it's really saying, is convenience more important, or should we be making that country connection more important? Connection with city country.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd be guessing, but it seems to me that why would somebody be buying something from direct from a farm source, like here in Melbourne, Aussie Farmers Direct? I guess they're national, same kind of thing. A lot of it's convenience, but I think a powerful component of this is actually the sense that this is coming from a natural source.
Yeah.
And so if one can leverage the point of convenience that it's probably a rational an outcome, potentially a differentiating rational outcome, but the emotional territory could well be green fields, lovely cows, fresh milk, the whole blue sky farm, healthy living thing, because as a buyer for this product, I want my family to grow up healthy and to eat natural food. So that actually is enormously powerful. So I would say they both have a role. One is probably more powerful emotional territory than the other.
Yeah, I agree. And Rowena's products around pasta sources and stuff. So, my experience looking at, so I did that paper on sort of 5 trends in horticulture. Provenance is a really key component of that moving forward, that people really want to know where their foods come from and be in touch with the farmers. So I think, yeah, that emotional connection, Rowan, is fine. All right. Now, we might have to leave it there. We've gone a little bit longer than we thought. So thank you for your questions. We'll just sort of jump ahead here. Our next webinar is scheduled for the 31st of March. So we're going to do that on how to lift your personal productivity and gain an extra 8 hours in every week. We ran this webinar in 2013, and it's been one of the most popular ones we've run, and it's got quite a few hits on YouTube and everywhere. So we're going to be doing that. So thank you very much, Jim. I'm sorry, I'm going the wrong way here. Thank you for your participation today and for delivering for us. A great topic. Thank you, everybody, for turning up. Thanks particularly to Ray and Chris from my business for coordinating this and getting it together. And until next time, guys, thank you very much. I'm happy to stay on and answer any questions if you've got any more. All right. Thanks again, Jim.
Thanks, everybody. Cheers.